Hey everyone, it's Alex here, and yesterday I went to apply for a new passport. And the reason for that was because I've just filled up my old passport and there's no more pages left, so I need to get a new one. So I thought I'd do a quick video about, what went into that whole process of, getting a whole passport filled up because for me that was a big deal. I was quite excited to have gone to enough countries and traveled enough to fill up a passport. So I'll tell you a little bit about some of the experiences I've had and a couple of tips also for when you get a passport and you get a new one. So let me start by giving you a pro tip, and that's if you're applying for a new passport or your first passport even, is to get one of the bigger passports. So if you look at this one, I believe this is a 28-page passport, not that thick. And you can actually apply for one that has 48 pages in South Africa. And I know in the US it's similar. You can get a 54-page passport, and when you apply, all you have to do is tick a little box and you get a bigger passport. And in South Africa it's just a little bit more expensive, but definitely worth it. Now the reason for that is because, well, you can fill it up and it's a bit of a pain to get a new one. And you may be thinking, if you haven't traveled that much yet, they're like, there's tons of pages. There's no way I'm going to fill this up anytime soon. Well, especially in Southeast Asia, you get a lot of different visas. So let me show you, for example, that's a Vietnamese visa and it takes up a whole page, and then you need to get stamped for entry and exit as well. And it's similar for, other countries like Cambodia, got a big one there. So it can actually fill up very fast, especially, if you're traveling around Southeast Asia a lot, which is very cheap to do, and a lot of people do that. There's the Lao stamp. That's quite a nice one, I like that. So I'm going to go down memory lane here and tell you a couple of stories. I've been to 25 countries now, and, it's been really great, especially over the last 3 years. I've just been going non-stop to new countries. My first trip was out to Europe when I was, in university. So I did about 10 countries then. I was traveling around a bit. The UK, Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, France, Austria, a couple of other countries, all the Western European countries, a lot of those. That was pretty fun. That was over a couple of months. But obviously in that amount of time, doing 10, 11 countries, I think it was, including the Vatican, I guess that counts as a country, you actually don't get to experience everything that long. You don't get to spend that much time in each country. So I kind of like to think about it like going to an ice cream shop. You can either go in and taste a little bit of each different flavor, or you can go in and just go for one big scoop and really enjoy that. So that's kind of how I see traveling, is you can either do the short periods in each country, or you can actually stay in a country for longer. Now, getting started like that, I thought that was fun, but it only became clear to me afterwards and after a while and spending more time in other countries that you get a much richer experience if you live in a country. So before I get into that, I actually did a bit of traveling when I was younger. In my teenage years, I went to Lebanon and Egypt, and that was great because I've got some Mediterranean blood in me. My grandfather's Lebanese, and that was really cool because I got to see that Arabic culture out there. And that actually was one of the first experiences I had traveling that really opened my eyes to how amazing it can be, especially when I went to Egypt and I went inside the Great Pyramids, right down into the center where you could actually lie in where the sarcophagus was. It's like a big stone box, and you could spend some time there. And that was just super cool. Went scuba diving in the Red Sea, and I think that kind of made me realize that I want to do a lot more of this later in my life. So then after studying, right around 3 years ago, actually almost exactly right now, I flew out to South Korea for my first year of teaching English. So let me see if I can find that visa. Yeah, there it is. So we've got the Korean visa, which is a 1-year visa. because you sign a contract and then you get a 1 year visa and then you teach for 1 year. And I actually got a little extension here. I stayed, let's see, an extra month or so, and I had to pay for that, but because I wasn't leaving straight after that, I got a bit of an extension. So actually, pro tip, if you're teaching in South Korea and then you want to stay longer and search for another job, you can transfer from the E2 visa to a different visa that you can actually search for a job on and stay in South Korea for up to 6 months, I think it is, just searching for another job. So that's quite cool because it's easier to find a job when you're already in the country. So if you don't extend your current contract for whatever reason, then you can do that and search for another job. Maybe if you want to move to a different city or something like that. So yeah, when I headed out to South Korea, that's when I started this YouTube channel. You'll see my first video is when I'm like sitting at home packing and I'm like, this is how you start teaching English and pack for teaching English. And that was about 3 years ago now. And since then I've been making YouTube videos, and I think it was the day in the life teaching English in Korea video that got a lot of hits and kind of got this channel going. And since then have had almost 1.5 million views. And you know, it's been really cool because during that time I always started making videos trying to help people out with tips, because I thought it could be something more than just entertainment. And clearly that's what it's become now that I've started a company that actually helps people get started teaching. But I think if you go back and you watch a lot of those videos, they're not only useful, but they do show you life out in South Korea. You know, traveling around to the big cities, seeing cool things, showing some clips of me teaching. And that actually got a lot of people interested, and that's how I took things from there. I also took a trip out to the Philippines during my career vacation from teaching, and that was great. I spent 10 days on an island, Boracay Island, which was just what I wanted at that time. I had actually broken my ankle in South Korea. I had like pretty bad surgery. So I just went and chilled on the beach. There's all these clubs and bars along the beach so you can party it up. It's known as a party island. So I did a bit of that as well as just chilling on the beach, and I did a solo trip, which was great. I used to really like the idea of traveling solo at that point, and after that I did a lot more solo traveling too. And the Philippines is really great. It's just beautiful. The people are friendly, and I wish there was more of a teaching English scene, but everyone speaks English very well there, so there isn't much demand for English teachers. But I really liked it out there. I did some dune buggying, I don't know what it's called, like those RV things, and did a zip line out on Boracay. That was fun. So then after Korea was the Southeast Asia era, which has been the last 2 years of my life, and that's when you can see the passport really starts to fill up. There's all these stamps because you end up traveling around so much because it's cheap, because visas are short. Generally, you kind of have to move around a fair amount. But I started off with Thailand, which is still one of my favorite countries, especially now that we've got a TEFL course running there. I'm going to be spending more time in Thailand for sure. But I've already been there, like, I don't know, I should count the number of stamps, but probably 4 or 5 different times. And, spent some time on the islands, up in Chiang Mai, in Bangkok, which is a crazy, exciting city. But the islands especially, I spent 1 month in this Airbnb right after teaching in Korea. Just went with a bunch of friends and we lived in this Airbnb for a month, like just off savings from South Korea pretty much. And, starting to work on the company Ninja Teacher, but, we had just one of the most awesome months of my life. We went to the full moon party, which was so crazy, so cool. Actually, that video that I made there is one of the most highly ranked videos on the full moon party. It's quite a cool video. Check it out if you want. But that month there on that island, Koh Samui Island, was absolutely awesome. And then I spent another month traveling around Chiang Mai, Bangkok, after which I went through Laos, which has some of the most beautiful natural scenery in the world. Spent a few weeks in Laos, and then by that point I was like, okay, it's time to settle down. It's going to be Vietnam, because I know there's this untapped teacher English scene there, and I'm going to go there and make videos about it and show all of you guys what it's like in Vietnam. And, I've been there for the last year and a half. So that was really awesome, the time in Vietnam too. As you can see, there's the stamp. Got a few of those now. And I do have a year and a half's worth of videos on teaching English in Vietnam and life in Vietnam, with some pretty cool clips of all sorts of different places. I lived for the first 8 months up in Hanoi, which is beautiful. I stayed right by Tay Ho Lake, which is a big lake right in the center of the city. And it's such a great city, really nice expat community of teachers. And then I managed to travel around the north quite a lot to Sapa, right in the north, which has some of the most beautiful views ever. Ba Vi National Park, just all around the north, which is great. And then I basically decided to escape the winter in Hanoi, because it does get a little bit cold and wet during winter in Hanoi, whereas Ho Chi Minh City's winters are actually basically like summer. People joke that Ho Chi Minh City has hot and hot as the two seasons, and then there's like 4 months of rain. But it's hot all the time, so winter's actually really nice in Ho Chi Minh City. So I set up in Ho Chi Minh City and was there for a total of a year, before coming back here to South Africa just to visit family and stuff. So also during that time, I managed to check out Singapore, Malaysia, Cambodia. Just the fact that you can book a $50 flight from Thailand to Vietnam, and then, do that, go on a trip, costs like a couple $100 for like a few days or up to a week, just ridiculously cheap, especially the more you get to know how to travel cheaply around Southeast Asia. And that's something that you can do if you're teaching English in Vietnam, especially because you can save up to half your salary very often, because living expenses aren't high. And then you spend the rest of your money on whatever you want. Maybe it's traveling, maybe it's sending some money home. And then I also took a trip to Singapore and more recently Hong Kong. And Singapore I hardly even talked about because I filmed a bunch of footage, but I actually never put a video out about that. Singapore and Hong Kong are both much more expensive than other cities and countries in Southeast Asia, but they are really cool. You see these skylines that are just absolutely awesome. Singapore and Hong Kong are the best skylines I've ever seen. I haven't been to all the cities in the world, New York and stuff like that. So what can I say about filling up a passport? Well, I would encourage you to do it in a way that suits you. If that is just to take quick trips to different countries, maybe that's the right thing for you. Maybe it's not though, and maybe living in a country for an extended period of time is a better option. Personally, I love that slow travel. I'm going to continue to do it for a while yet. I'm heading back to Vietnam, going to be in Southeast Asia, going to travel a lot around Southeast Asia over the next year at least. So yeah, my recommendation to you is, go ahead. If you haven't got one of these, get a big one, fill it up with experiences. And I couldn't go into that much detail just in this one video, but I've had these really great experiences. So let me know, what about you? Have you had some great travel experiences? How do you like to travel? All right, make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more videos about life and teaching English abroad, and I'll speak to you in the next video. Peace out.